All right, we got Joseph's iPad. Well, we have had one heck of a week at Polestar. We had Tuesday meditation, Thursday long meditation, Saturday morning retreat, Saturday evening Yogananda's birthday party, and then Sunday we did the service at the Unity Church. Did some of the music and the talk. So
How did it go?
Oh, it went pretty well, I think. Ask anybody else.
It went well. Thumbs up.
Thank you. You are very kind. Yeah.
Cassandra.
You sit behind me and not next to me, they'll see you.
I'm a little out of practice talking to a large group, but
I video recorded it. He did great.
please don't send it to me.
I already did.
Well, Michael, I feel the same way when I present to big groups in an audience and you just selected. I don't know if that went well, right? Because it all kind of blurs, right?
People are very kind, I've learned, actually.
Yes.
They feel for you up there, which is very, very nice. Which actually ties into my amusing story of the day. I'll tell you guys, some of you were there, but this was actually very funny. We were at the Unity Church for Christmas Eve. They had a candlelight service there, and we did some of the music there. We did about 4 songs. But anyway, they had this family there that was very musical and really good musicians, from a very young boy to more like a college age daughter, and then a couple of guys in there too. And they were doing a lot of the other music. So this guy gets up there and he's doing "Oh Holy Night." And you know that song. I mean, it is dramatic, and it's a wonderful carol. It's one of the best, actually. But he gets to the part where fall on your knees, and the musician completely goes off the rails. So he's got a piano accompaniment, so he completely loses his way at that point in the song. So he keeps playing, and then he stops, and then he tries to pick it up at fall on your knees. And then he goes off the rails again. So by this time, everybody's howling in the whole place. But they try again one more time. Fall. At this point, everybody's singing with him at the top of their lungs. So the whole place, it was actually one of the best parts of the service, because it was just everybody, and he was a real good sport about it. And then the end of it was the main minister got up there afterward and said, "Well, I invite you all to get up off your knees." So it was pretty great event. But yeah, we got through today pretty good, I'd say. It was fun, nice group, and they're very generous people there, and they have a very nice facility. So that's been really fun. So where are we? What time is it? 4 minutes? Should we wait another minute? Maybe we can launch. All right. Vina, you're going to do a little reading and a meditation. You want to do that? And I'll do a song at the end. How about that?
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. We had a really lovely half-day retreat yesterday, and we were talking a lot about New Year's and New Year themed things, creating good habits and whatnot. So I'm just going to share some wisdom from Yogananda about habits and some practical advice, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Affirm, "I am healthy," or "I am wise." The positive affirmation must be so strong that it completely crowds out any subconscious, discouraging, negative enemy thoughts that may be whispering to you. "You fool, you'll never succeed. You are a failure. Wisdom is impossible for you." You must know that whatever you wish strongly, you can materialize in short order. In practicing affirmations, the spiritual aspirant must be unfailingly patient. Believe you are inherently healthy when you want good health. Believe you are inherently prosperous when you want prosperity. Believe you are inherently wise when you want wisdom. Then health, prosperity, and wisdom will manifest themselves in you. Change the trend of your thoughts. Cast out all negative mental habits. Replace them with wholesome, courageous thought habits and apply them in daily life with unshakable confidence. Let's just meditate on these words for a moment. Om, peace, amen.
Thank you, Vina. Right. Well, welcome everyone. Glad you could join us today. Today I'm going to give a little update on everything Polestar, and then we have a special guest, Stace McGee, who is an architect, and he's been a main energy consultant for us. And he's going to share a little bit about his perspective on the Polestar project, and we'll have some opportunity for questions with Stace as well. So to just start, we've had an amazing week actually at Polestar. A lot of events, and we continue to be delighted by how many people we meet who we really enjoy being in community with. So it's very, very fun to be meeting so many like-minded souls who are excited about what we're trying to build here, who want to get involved in one way or another, and who have real, life and energy and spirit to bring to the whole equation. So really feels like we've landed in the right spot here for building Polestar. So that's going very well. The project is got a life of its own at this point. It's hard to keep up with all the changes day by day. The first 2 weeks of the year, you know how the holidays can be sort of hard to get much done and hard to reach people and all that, and everybody getting some downtime. But the first 2 weeks of the year were sort of like getting shot out of a cannon. So much happened just in that first week, and then this second week wasn't much different. But I'll mention just a few very, very fun highlights. So one of them is the university has taken an interest in our project, and which is very cool. They have this Institute for the Built Environment, and they are really all about everything we're all about. They really resonate with the values we're putting forward about what we want to build at Polestar. So they're very enthusiastic about it. And in fact, next semester, Polestar will be a main topic and theme in one of the architecture classes. And that class will have 72 students, and their assignment will be to study and work on some of the Polestar designs, some of the residential and some of the community spaces. So it has 2 professors and 72 students, and they're really going to be focusing on Polestar. It was very exciting, and it just fits so perfectly with Polestar's mission of education and getting people involved and really drawing on the wisdom of the community to create this new expression of community. So we're real excited about that. They have this this certification they call lifelong homes. And it's basically, if you're familiar with LEED, which Stace can talk a little bit more about that, it's a standard of building excellence that is very, very high standard and not easy to reach, but we are actually shooting for gold standard LEED certification. But lifelong homes, as presented by the university, is especially considering the whole life of an individual, and especially aging, and living your whole life in one house. So that's sort of the lifelong homes. But their latest thing is they want to make a certification for lifelong communities. And so they want us to be their first kind of poster child, lifelong community. So we don't know what it all means yet. We've talked to them a little bit about it, but certainly the values that they're presenting resonate with us very, very much. I'll give you one quick example. One of their categories of design is in a home is visitability. Visitability, it's a little hard to say it. And it basically considers, they point out that, well, yeah, older people sometimes have mobility issues, but really it's about 20% of the population that has mobility issues. So they want to make homes that can have visitors who have mobility issues. So it's considering the entrance, it's considering the bathroom, it's considering just having people be comfortable when they're visiting. It's just something I had never thought of, and I really appreciate the fact that somebody's thinking about it, So anyway, we're delighted to be working with them. The other big thing that has happened is we have found that the Department of Housing, we have a new financial advisor who is really excellent, and we're really glad he's on our team. He has told us that for the first time ever, the Department of Housing is doing funding and grants and low interest loans for what they call the missing middle in housing. So if you haven't heard of that term, housing tends to gravitate towards high-end, expensive housing that is difficult for the average person to afford, and the low end, which is either undesirable housing or affordable housing that's been subsidized in various ways by various people. So the missing middle is everything else. People who have a job, but they may not be making six figures, but they're workers. They call it worker housing. And so for the first time, they're actually putting funding towards that. And as a 501c3, Polestar, we have the potential to qualify for that funding. And so the next application is due in February, and we're planning on submitting. So we're going to see what they can do. They have funding that will actually help in land acquirement and also per unit funding as you build housing that would fit that missing middle. I'll mention briefly the main, because I'm always wary of government money and the strings attached and all that. And actually, we've looked at other programs that were not that interesting to us because of that. In this case, they simply do a deed restriction. So and we don't know the years yet. He thought it was 15 years. So in other words, you can't qualify and buy the missing middle housing and then flip it next year and make a big profit, because that's not the intent of it. The intent of it is to hold that value. So you have a deed restriction where for 15 years, it's got to stay in that category of missing middle housing. So that's a great thing. And then the other thing we're really working on is we have one of our advisors is on the the Fort Collins Energy Board. And he's very enthusiastic about Polestar, and he's got about 100 different ways he's trying to find us funding for our very ambitious energy goals. And I'll let Stace talk more about this, but I'll just introduce it briefly. Our goal is to make Polestar a microgrid, which is to say, it's an island. That's how we lived in Hawaii, actually, for many years, except we didn't have a grid tie. We were just off grid. We had our own power system. In this case, it would be a microgrid that would be tied to the grid with a smart interface. So with the ability to generate power through solar, to store power through batteries, what's being proposed actually is very fun, is a car share program of 50 vehicles that have what they call V to G, a vehicle to grid connection. So you can, from your car, you can run your house, or you can sell power back, or you can buy power. And it's this whole very intelligent grid setup, which is pretty much essential for what we have to do moving forward to be way more efficient with our power use. So there's various programs, and we, for a moment there, it looked like we were going to have the city of Fort Collins apply on our behalf to include such a thing. At the moment, that's off, but they're working on many different levels, and we've met so many amazing people who are working on this problem. It's actually very encouraging to see that. So that's a little bit of an update. I'll probably share a little more at the end if we have time. But I think I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Stace. And once again, for those of you who weren't here right at the beginning, Stace is an architect. And I was told by a friend and colleague who said, you need to hire Stace McGee. He'll get you, and he was right, So
Careful what you ask for, Michael.
yeah, really. So Stace has been a big help, not only in understanding how we design our energy use, but also just in the way that he works with people and works with us. It's just been a very, very productive and harmonious relationship. So we really appreciate that. So Stace, I'll hand off to you and let you run with it.
Thank you, Michael. Just so you guys get a little bit better of a background of understanding of who I am. So I'm an architect's kid. It's all I've ever known. My dad had offices in New York City and Florida, and I worked with him for 10 years. In the mid 1990s, I started a sustainable architecture firm. And our goal was at that point in time to make green building viable for everybody. And that theme is run through everything that we do. We're now consider ourselves a regenerative architecture firm. And my family has also always been developers and big residential developers. So if I had to do something other than this, I'd probably be digging ditches or swinging a hammer, one or the other. This is what I know and live and breathe all my life. I've been big into green buildings, sustainability. That's all my firm has ever done, but we branched out into doing a whole lot of different things to provide support to the developers that we worked for over the years, because nobody understood the energy modeling well enough to really interface with it, or land use, water use, climate, materials, all those things. So, that's what I've spent my life doing, and I very much specialize in residential only. I really don't understand the commercial realm that well. And you all would think, and so I got involved in working with Michael and Diva, JT, and Dan, who I don't see here. And I would say, Michael, the same thing. I have really appreciated to get to know you guys. I really enjoy the working relationship, and I really fully believe in everything you guys are trying to do. My thesis work many, many years ago was about this. So I'm super excited to see how the community goes and everything it does. And you would think that we're talking right now, as Michael was saying, down the rabbit hole, we went in understanding how do we make the most efficient, all electric, so no gas, no fossil fuels, all electric community that we can, because we know that the United States is moving down the road of providing renewable energy for electricity as we go through the years here to 2030. And you would think energy, we're talking about, right, our community buildings, we're talking about the shelter over our heads. But interestingly enough, Polestar is weaving in transportation. So we're also talking about the energy that is used for us to move from point A to point B. But we're also talking like ESG, right? Environmental, social governance. And it's about everybody gets the same energy source in the community. Right now, Fort Collins is one of the very few communities in the state of Colorado where if you go in for development work and you're putting 1 kW PV on the market rate housing, you have to go into all the affordable housing units and provide the same. If you've got balanced ventilation, everybody has to get balanced ventilation, whether you're market rate, missing middle, or affordable. And the nice thing is private developers, you all have chosen to do the exact same thing, which is a big social equity thing in my mind. Another big piece is we were delving in. We first started looking at a microgrid of producing our own power. And we learned from our conversations with utility, with the city utility, that what they really were looking for was battery storage on the grid. They're looking for resiliency, and they are looking for our community to understand and have different nodes on the grid where energy can be put back into the grid, right? To make a resilient grid, and to have power production that is decentralized, so that, again, we can be resilient to an unusual economy, an unusual climate, or forces that are happening, like everybody's turning the air conditioning or heat on at the same time, and we're having a big use or pull of energy from the grid. And I find it very interesting that going down the microgrid route, that we may be actually able to tap into some social capital, people, slow money, people who believe in what it is that we are trying to do and achieve, and they want to be part of that change. Energy also talks about our climate, right? We're talking about getting power from the sun. We're talking about getting power from the sun to charge our cars, so that our cars can run the houses, it can run the commercial building, but the cars can also drive you to the grocery store or to a doctor's appointment or up into the mountains. Again, you'll hear over and over again, I talk about resiliency because it's resilient in so many different ways as we're looking into everything. I think also the really interesting part about a microgrid is the accountability part. We know where the energy is coming from. We don't have a wondering of, well, how much of our power here in Fort Collins is coming from a coal burning plant, right? That's making electricity. We know our power is coming from solar panels. And not only that, we know how we are using the power, which is really interesting because it makes us accountable. We are part of that change. And being a part of that change and going down that right route gives us all the opportunity as a group to really make some change, to be a project that people all over the country are looking at and trying to emulate. How do we become a microgrid? And as Michael said, we're not going to be an island. We're a power grid or a microgrid that is attached to the bigger grid. So if some people down the street need some power that aren't part of the community, they can get involved in that. Or if the city itself needs more power put into the grid, that can also happen. But it will take the community working together to be able to do so. So the interesting part about the microgrid is, and the technology of appliances and systems like your heating and cooling systems, is basically like when you buy a U-Haul truck, we may have a governor of some sorts for peak use time, of which it'll shave a little bit of energy usage from everybody's house and put that back into the grid at peak use. Number one, because that's when you can get paid the most money as a community to make the economic case of all this work really well, but also you're working for the greater good of the community of Fort Collins, the community in which you live, and sharing where we still have enough to do everything we need to do, we give a little bit back, which is a very interesting opportunity. As Michael said, it's a microgrid, meaning that there will be PV on all of the houses on the roofs. There'll be PV on carports. We've even started looking at what they call agrivoltaics, which is a CSU project that is going on right now, where they have some solar in their gardens where they're growing certain types of food that actually help those plants not have so much evapotranspiration or so much sunlight hitting them. They grow better, bigger fruits, bigger vegetables, whatever it may be. So we're going to explore all different kinds of avenues to create our own energy from the sun. And I should have said earlier, obviously JT and Michael and Diva have been working really hard at creating an envelope, the walls and roof of your home that don't need a lot of energy to heat and cool it. We don't need appliances and refrigerators that use a ton of energy, that it's very efficient, Energy Star, things of that nature. All of the endeavors we're going after will all create and have the ability to interact and get the new Inflation Reduction Acts. So there's a few different rebates that are coming into the community. There is also rebates and monies that come from the city itself and some of the programs they have going on. So there'll be some good payback in the system that again will help pay for the cost of this system. I think it's also important to know that so all that power goes from the solar panels and it goes into the vehicles. The vehicles, then there is a brain in the community, and it decides where can all the power go to all these different homes, to the community building, back into the grid, whatever it may be. But I think it's important to know, once again, for resiliency, that that car fleet of electric cars will be small get around cars for town, a car take you up into the mountains, a pickup truck to go down to Home Depot to buy whatever it is you may need. Heck, who knows, maybe there's a van. And at least in my mind, and Michael, you correct me, but I'm hoping that sometime soon we start some kind of a poll that reaches out to the Polestar community that starts talking about how you use energy. Energy in your home, energy for transportation to go to the grocery store, to doctors, whatever it may be, a fun day up in the mountains to go do something. Because the more that we understand as a community how that power is going to be used, the better job that the designers can make at designing this system that provides the power that we need. And also, so we can hopefully design in some good flexibility in the system so that we will be able to evolve and adapt as we see how people live, because obviously there's a whole lot of part of human nature in what we're talking about, right? It's do you leave the refrigerator door open as your teenagers do to decide what the heck it is they want to eat, right? And you're constantly asking them to shut the refrigerator door. But there's all those kinds of things will go into this process. Michael and Diva have found a great consultant through the local guy, Bill Althouse, in California, that may be coming on as a consultant. And this is what they do all around the country. I mean, they help communities do microgrids. So again, I would say what I find so amazing about this process and the dedication that we have brought forth to this endeavor is the ability as a community to affect some real change. And with the great possibility that we could develop a microgrid system where we can actually benefit or balance the cost of what the system costs and what it gives back. And so that we may be able to get to that net zero electric with the same kind of mortgages that we would have had with any other home built here in Fort Collins. Just because we're going through the ability of doing it very smartly, and that we have the ability to get a whole bunch of rebates and incentives from the federal government, because the federal government through the IRA and the direction of the government at this point in time is an all electric United States. That is run from alternative sources of energy, not from fossil fuels. Is that a good overview there, Michael, of what we're trying to do?
That's perfect, Stace. And I think we're going to have plenty of questions and further discussions. So who's got a question or a comment or anything?
Michael, can we post in the chat for
I can watch the chat, sure.
so this is from Paul Nima, who's invested in the project. I've got him on the line right now. So is future capacity being planned for and built for electric vehicles?
Absolutely. So not only, Ryan, do we have to design a system, which we've been doing for a long time, that'll provide the power for your house, right? Mm-hmm. But now all of a sudden we're adding vehicles into it, and those vehicles have batteries that are running the house, right? But that vehicle is also going to drive you to Boulder to go to a meeting or something, right? And so we also have, for the last few years, have been getting rule of thumb, at least myself residentially, on how much PV is needed to charge cars And that's part of what the poll is going to be about, Ryan, is trying to understand how do you use a car averagely during the week, during the month, during the year, and how many miles do you go so that we can provide the correct amount of electric cars, the correct amount of power that needs to be there in the community to run the community, but also for you to do your daily errands or whatever that may be. So absolutely, we're going to go into that kind of a design. Absolutely, there's going to be some extra power there that is, just a buffer, just in case contingency. But then very much so, the system has to be designed where, number one, we can add to the system if we need to add to the system. But more importantly, if we actually get to the point where we're using more electricity than we need, it gets sold back into the grid. And because you have the cars and the batteries, we'll be able to dump that power back into the grid during peak periods where our utility company, Fort Collins, is paying the most for that power to get back into the grid.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Paul, did you have any further questions on that, Paul?
No, that's great, Tom. Fantastic. Appreciate the answer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Joe, you asked, is there communities that currently operate near net zero? There are communities all across the country that are going through this process. A few of them been up and running for a couple of years at a time. A couple of years. And so there's some good empirical data there. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Z&E guys, is their project in Boulder up and running yet? Or is it still in the being built phase?
I don't think it's up and running yet, but I do know of in north end of Fort Collins, there's the Revive.
All right.
And they are, some of those people get checks.
Yep.
So they basically get a monthly check from the power company. So now I'm sure others don't, it may depend if you have a hot tub or whatever it is.
Right.
And
so Michael's referring to a project right behind Jack's on College. If anybody who knows Fort Collins, there are a series of 3-story townhouses behind Jack's that are called Revive. Revive is a solar to batteries, but Revive is also a ground source heat pump, a geothermal systems for heating and cooling. Revive is a LEED Platinum certified project here in town. And yes, and I don't know, Michael, if I can call that a community though, in a way where it's a series of row houses on a road, right? Not necessarily. Not community like Polestar is going to be community.
No, they don't have the same intention, but as far as energy use goes, it is something that there can be done, and they are succeeding at it. So
Certainly.
that level of it, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, and we have quite a number of homes here in Fort Collins that are net zero electric, and all over Colorado, just tons of them. What we have not seen, and we're just starting to see though, is net zero electric communities. And again, a community going through into a system and everybody investing into a much larger system makes everything much more economical, much more cost effective, because it's a community system for 140 some odd homes, not a one-off.
Anyone else?
I have a question. This is kind of, I don't really understand how it works. So some cars might have to be plugged into the system, and other cars can be running around doing errands.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we know how many cars need to be plugged in at any given time.
That's right.
It's basically,
it's an algorithm, and from what I understand, and you know what, I haven't done this part of it before, and I have had some hour-long conversations with these guys going, so how the hell do you model this? And basically the basic answer was, we need a certain size fleet so that we have enough cars plugged in that it gets us through the next few days of weather and understanding that usage. We then need transitional cars that are coming in and out of the community. And basically when we take a car out, we're going to have to say, I'm going to be gone for an hour. I'm going to be gone for 6 hours. I'm going to use approximately this much energy. So we'll have to give some estimates that get logged into the computer so that it tells the community this car is gone for this long, no chance to charge it. And then the algorithm corrects itself.
I see.
And so again, everything is built with extra capacity in there, right? So there's always a buffer, but it will continue to update itself by what's going on in the climate. You know, I mean, the weather forecast. I mean, we all know the weather forecast here changes the day before or the hour before for Gus, right? And so it will also be connected into all of that, and it will continue to update itself. The Z&E Alliance guys in California, this proprietary brain that operates all this is what they've been working on for the last few years.
And are the charging stations the same thing as the station where the car is giving energy to the?
Yeah.
It's the
It's
same.
a slightly different type of charging station, but it's going to look exactly like what you go. You know, we got a few charging stations here in Fort Collins. It's going to look just like one of those. You just plug that car in. They'll be distributed throughout the community itself. And know that the community is a big loop, right? Everything is connected to everything, right? So it's if one part or piece or some car stops charging or the station goes bad, it still moves through the community. You know, plug it in somewhere else.
Okay.
And it should also be noted that JT and I have had some rather lengthy conversations, of which we've been bringing Bill Althouse into our comments, Michael, or our thoughts, excuse me, that the community building probably needs to have a big battery system where the community building is self-sufficient on its own. And that would also be where the brain for the community lives. So we know that it always has power and it never goes down. So there'll be some hard physical batteries that don't move, is what I'm getting at, a room in the community building.
That makes sense. And then not to be forgotten is we are tied to the grid. So it's not like we're going to run out of power. We're just going to try to optimally use it. And you know, we can work around the realities of power generation to the extent that's reasonable and keeps us from having to buy more power from the grid. But at the end of the day, it's not like you'll run out of power. You got to stop living because we will be tied to the grid. So that's a very cool thing. Which is one of my questions, actually. You know, and Stace, I wrote this to you in a letter, and it was kind of just sharing some thoughts, but I wonder if you thought about it at all. We lived off grid in Hawaii for many years, probably about 12 years, 11, 12 years. And we did not have a super generous solar system, you know. So when our batteries were low, the generator kicked in. And that was a big bummer for everybody. So that created a lot of motivation, along with the fact that it was expensive to run the generator. So the whole thing of living there in Hawaii, those of you who live there know this, it took a lot of awareness and consciousness and intention. And at the point, there was a point at which, you know, I sort of didn't like it, but there was a point at which I realized this is a good thing, you know. It's just a good thing that we're being so conscious of how we use power. And so that was part of the training. When visitors came, they couldn't use the hairdryer, you know. We were in a bunch of other communities near us also were off grid. And, you know, one of them would turn off their entire panel every night at 10 o'clock. So there's no power in the whole community.
Because of the EMP.
Oh, yeah. We had long conversations about phantom power.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how, you know, down to the electron we were living, you know.
You should try those people, Michael, who turn on the self-cleaning portion of their oven. Oh my God, you want to watch something suck power? So it's amazing how much power it uses, a self-cleaning oven. It is really bad.
I believe it. So in my letter to you, and I'm putting it out here a little bit because it's a good thing for everybody to think about. You know, everybody's down for saving the planet as long as we are inconvenienced, it seems. You know, we're pretty on board as long as we don't have to change anything, you know. So to what extent is it smart to, and I agree, you know, you have to hopefully inspire people to get on board. And in the end, I think we were pretty successful at that in Hawaii. We sort of got behind it. And I even found for myself, you know, when I go somewhere else where power was not thought about consciously, I still took what we call a power shower. You turn on the water, you get wet, you turn off the water, then you wash, and then you turn the water. It makes so much sense. And you use about a quarter the amount of water. And for us, water was power because we were pumping it. And water was also a limited, you know, sometimes we have dry spells. We were catching our water from the roof. So water was sometimes scarce that way. So anyway, this, I guess my hope would be that we would all embrace a certain amount of that intention of that living within our means power-wise. And that would be part of what we would shoot for. And the reason this to me is fairly complicated is because the list of things that we continue to plug in, you know, air purifiers and humidifiers and dehumidifiers and toothbrushes and water picks and you know, computers and, you know,
Microwaves.
And how about the vacuum sweeper? And I saw today at the church, I saw battery operated snowblower in the in the side room plugged in, you know. So all this stuff is using power. And so anyway,
Michael, let me answer that.
I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Very interesting. And when we have our conversations, we've had conversations about this, but a lot of the time these guys speak in such a language that you're like, okay, I don't fully grasp what you're saying because it's very loaded. So let's talk about maybe your system that you had in Hawaii compared to the system here. To start with, the system here will have microinverters. So the panels producing electricity are, each panel is individual. So it doesn't get degraded by how many ever put it in series. It's only that one panel produces less. And you'll be able to go online at any point in time and see diagrammatics of it with every panel shown. And you'll see one that's maybe not producing really well or is a lot less. And boy, you'll go, hey, is that thing shaded? And you'll be able to really optimize everything that way. But number two, I was trying to, and you did kind of say it. The system is smart enough to know when you're not producing enough power or you're using too much power as a community. With how much power you have stored, it will start regulating everyone. You won't be able to change it. And it is done by everybody's critical loads are covered in their units. And as a community, you'll get to define what's that critical load, right? Some communities may say HVAC is a critical load. Some may say, no, it's not really. Or you may be able to go in with the type of equipment that you have and say, okay, the HVAC is going to have a governor on it. You just said you want it to be 70 degrees in the middle of summer, but we just hit a crunch time in power and it's automatically going to kick your thermostat to 77 or 78, where it will still cool your home somewhat, but it won't let you use a ton of energy until the community rights itself with the amount of power that's in the batteries for a certain number of days to be able to operate. So again, it does the same thing. We can do it for your refrigerator. A critical load, if you have microwaves in your community, microwaves will not be on a critical load because they pull just way too much energy. Your toaster will not be on the critical load path, but your stove and your refrigerator and your lighting and, you know, any of those other things, those are all on the critical load path of the panel where they cannot be turned off. But your plug loads, it'll monitor that stuff. So it's yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Very.
And again,
interesting.
you as a community can define what it can and cannot do, right? So it's not like Big Brother, it's a community-made decision.
Yes. Well, and at the end of the day, everybody pays their own bill.
Right. Yep, that's right.
So
It's a master meter that comes in, but the community sub-meters everything you want to sub-meter.
So I assume that a family of 5 would have more power or more allotment go to them than somebody who's, by themselves. We would want them to have
Yep.
that contingency. Okay, good.
That's right. That's exactly right. And a lot of the time, that's through probably a family of 1 probably isn't going to be living in a 3-bedroom unit, right? So by nature itself, the HVAC equipment will be smaller, the refrigerator will be smaller, all those things will be a little smaller and produce or consuming less energy.
right.
So I saw another question here from Jim about other means of alternative energy. And we actually I led us down the garden path of looking at fuel cells and micro turbines and all those kinds of things. And that didn't work out as a way because we can't power those things by hydrogen yet. We don't have a clean source. But wind power, it is a thought and idea. Wind power for the size of the blades that you can get in this location of Fort Collins won't have the ability to produce that much power. But Jim, that's a great question. We definitely will be exploring that. We are also definitely exploring on the heating and cooling side a ground source heat pump system, because the water table is not that deep at Polestar. We have a consistent temperature, just like 10 feet down in the ground, but we also have a renewable, it doesn't saturate because of the water as it moves its way down to the ground, as it's going to the aquifer or going down to the Poudre River, is consistently bringing that colder water and movement of water through the mountains and underneath the property itself. So geothermal could be a really wonderful opportunity here. It hasn't been totally defined in the Inflation Reduction Act, but there's going to be some good rebates given from the government incentivizing communities to go geothermal.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, was just as a auxiliary methods of producing, supplement and complement, because I'm aware of, or I would think so, that the wind wouldn't be enough to do anything. But I was just thinking of the possibility of seeing how some of these small turbines are going. If you had some scattered around the property or something of nature, it just might be another, what do you want to call it, income flow, if we are sending stuff.
Yeah, also another really good visual for people, right? To see
Right.
that there's more than one type of alternative energies out there. And the other problem with those smaller turbines is they can't handle the wind speed, so they lock up a lot. And I don't know if you live here, Jim, but I know you've been here some, but man, the winds are erratic.
We can
Yeah, that's
hook up
true.
We can hook up the gymnasium bicycles to the grid.
We had a commercial customer years ago that was a bank, and they absolutely did that. And they actually gave their employees 45 minutes every day to work out. They actually had written in, and this is a bank, they had written in their bylaws you could take the elevator up or down, but you couldn't take it both ways. He was great. He's an amazing guy, man. He also gave for car loans to all of his employees. 30 miles to the gallon was a certain rate, 30 miles was another rate, hybrid was another rate, and if you were buying an electric car, it was a 1% loan. basically. So he did all kinds of things to incentivize his people to try to help him achieve the goals that he wanted to get to.
Wow. I have a question. When you say geothermal, you're using the ground underneath us to cool the air?
And heat, and it does both. It's a consistent temperature 10 feet down, basically. Let's just call it, it's 50, 55 degrees. And we can vary different drill depths that we go, and some could be for cooling, some could be more for heating. But the idea is that the ground stays at a very stable temperature to where for heating and cooling in the different units, we don't have to use a lot of energy to get it up to the right temperature that needs to come out and into the space.
I see.
Yeah, a good way to look at it is if 70 degrees is your happy place, you know, the time the outer environment is at 70 degrees is very small. And on a regular heat pump, you're working from whatever the temperature is towards 70 degrees. So if it's 0 degrees outside, you've got a 70-degree difference. At 55 degrees down below, it's 15 degrees year round. It just
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the delta change, Diva, from that, at those first 10 or 15 degrees, it takes more energy to get it to where you want it to go. It's kind of like when you want to get up to speed in your car and you immediately hit the gas, it's using a lot of gas. But then when it gets
Same
up
with
to
pain
operating speed,
management.
yeah, exactly.
I have another question on a different thing. You know how you said all the appliances and things are going to be connected? Is that going to be hardwired to the brain, or will it be?
So, and it's some of this stuff sort of concerns me, right? I've seen it all done. We have communities in New Mexico. That's where my mothership office is. We have communities in New Mexico that are 300 homes strong that are about a year and a half into having the type of systems that we're talking about. And your refrigerator, it's actually through the plug. It's through the electrical outlet.
Oh, wow.
And the information is sent through those same wires for the most part. Because this community down there was absolutely 100% uninterested, as I imagine you all would, for like a Wi-Fi, a dishwasher hooked up to the Wi-Fi. You know, it's like, no, I don't want those waves running through the home, right? So they have the ability to do it through the plug.
Okay.
That's a really good question, by the way. That's getting down into the nitty-gritty of things a little bit more.
Thanks.
All right, we maybe have time for one more question, then we're going to start wrapping up. Anybody else have a comment or? Cassandra?
I have it's an adjacent question. It's not directly related to energy, but I'm wondering what you guys, I don't know where you are in the planning process necessarily, but as you're setting up the solar and the solar panels, Stace, you mentioned growing plants under there at some point. There's also a practice of silvopasture and having animal husbandry as well intermixed with the panels. And I'm curious as to if you guys have any thoughts about intermixing some type of ag with the solar, because then there's also, of course, less maintenance. You guys wouldn't have to mow in between. It's just would be its own, hopefully just growing and then picking or harvesting eggs or whatever system. They could actually produce more energy, but in the form of food in this case. So just curious there.
So Cassandra, all really good ideas. We are starting to work with a company here in town called Sandbox Solar. They're really good guys. They're homegrown here.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have helped and worked with CSU in their grant writing program, and they are doing, they have them just like you, like animal husbandry included, growing of plants, which, what did they call it? Agrivoltaics, which was a new
Yeah.
term to me.
Sure, yeah.
But they have all kinds of stuff. And I think, Michael, you said that earlier on in the call that CSU is interested in getting involved in the community somewhat and doing some things. Maybe this is one way in which we could do some stuff together where they have access to grant money for these types of ideas and things. Again, I think we'll go through, as we get more information, we'll go through not only like an educational process like we're doing right now, but we'll go through a brainstorming session, right? We can go through it. We'll have questionnaires that go out to where you can put your ideas and thoughts, and not just the how you use electricity and how you think you're going to live, but, you know, so that pertinent information comes back.
Cool. I have 2 comments. So Sandbox Solar, they're a great company, and I've known folks and know some folks that work there. So just thumbs up on those guys. And B, you know, CSU has traditionally been like a bigger ag school, and it's kind of cool to see that maybe there's some interest in transitioning to some more community-minded ideas or smaller agriculture, which I could talk to you forever about why I think that's a solution to many problems we have in this world, is many more people farming. But but also they're a research school, so this could potentially, just be a type of research something for them that's moving them more in that direction. So that's kind of cool to think about.
Wonderful opportunity, right?
Yeah. Cool.
So I wanted to just in closing say, you guys have any kind of questions for me, go ahead and email me. I may not respond that day, but I'll get to it in a day or two. I will always respond. So any thoughts, ideas, questions, please don't hesitate to email me or call me.
Thank you, Stace, and great presentation. I learned a fair bit too, so that was really, really good. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, I'll say just a couple more things and then I'll close with a song. We have a large fundraising deadline coming up in April, so I just want everybody to be conscious of that. And it's going good. We've got about 4 or 5 different ways to solve it. The best way is really the way we've gotten this far, which is our peer-to-peer lending. So I really want to mention that to everybody. If you know of anybody who would resonate with this project, if you have a rich uncle, if you, if you are thinking about it and haven't fully vetted the whole process with me, we have, in fact, my hope is at the end of this week is to make a video actually that explains exactly where we are in the investment situation, so everybody really understand it. And so anyway, please direct people to the website polestarvillage.com and let them know about it. We find it's at this point it's kind of a numbers game. We know there's a lot of people out there that would really resonate with this idea and this vision, and we're finding them all the time, but we have to get the word out. So please help us do that. If everybody really sort of thought about it, looked at your email list, thought of ways you could help us get the word out, that would be much appreciated. So other than that, Vina, Terry, anything else we're supposed to say or announce? Oh, Ryan, yes.
I might have missed you saying this. Are you going to have a like for potential peer-to-peer lending, the rich uncle or the neighbor, like something we can hand them, like here's an info flyer, here's who to speak to, or here's a little video on where we're at and what we need?
That is the idea with this video, yes. Okay. And now we have the pitch book, of course, and those links which you've seen, which can also be used. And I'm also just, it's kind of my job to talk to anybody and everybody about this. So if you want to just give them my phone number, email, they can call me and I'll set up an appointment to talk their ear off about it.
Great, thank you.
So Yeah.
We
thank
also,
you.
yeah, we also just added some great Q&As to the website. So you can
Oh,
always
right. Yeah. Thank you for doing
people, yeah, so we can,
Wait.
you can send people there. It's just right on the homepage at the top. You can see the link now. We added it right on the front page. And that's super helpful to have people go through that first because they get a feel in it. And then it saves Michael and Vina and those folks.
Right. Right.
I mean, they'd love to talk to people, but it fills them in on a lot of really good information and tours and actually touring the land.
Yeah. Terry, do you want to tell people about the, what are we calling them? Information meetings that we're planning in Boulder for Sundays and Wednesdays potentially?
I mean, I'll just mention it briefly because we're going to probably flesh it out in the next couple of days, but we're putting together some in-person investor events. I also kind of thought maybe we should do a couple online as well.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for some space, Longmont, Boulder, Denver. It's either low cost or at no cost. And Michael's going to do, tour and talk to folks and do investor events. So we worked on it. We should have an electronic flyer ready tomorrow that people can share and some dates nailed down. We're going to hopefully have all that nailed down in the next couple of days. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
And we'll let everybody know.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Great to see you. This is the last event of our weekend. Thank God. We have had a big weekend, but we're going to close it with a song. And this is, you kind of lose track of some songs for a while and then you remember them and play them again. But Diva dredged this up over the weekend. We played it. It was very nice to revisit it. This is from a poem from Yogananda, very beautiful poem called The Noble New. You've never heard of it. And I'll just say the words and if you know it, please sing with me, but you will unfortunately have to mute because of the time lag. But it goes like this: sing songs that none have sung, think thoughts that ne'er in brain have run, walk in paths that none have trod, weep tears as none have shed for God. Give peace to all to whom none other gave, claim him your own, who's everywhere disclaimed. Love all with love that none have felt, and brave the battle of life with strength unchained. Sing songs that none have sung, think thoughts that ne'er in brain have run, walking paths that none have trod, weep tears as none have shed for God. Give peace to all to whom none other gave, claim him your own, who's everywhere disclaimed. Love all with love that none have felt, and brave the battle of life with strength unchained. Sing songs that none have sung, think thoughts that ne'er in brain have run, walking paths that none have trod, weep tears as none have shed for God. Give peace to all to whom none other gave, claim him your own, who's everywhere disclaimed. Love all with love that none have felt, and brave the battle of life with strength unchained. Sing songs that none have sung, think thoughts that ne'er in brain have run, walking paths that none have trod, weep tears as none have shed for God. Give peace to all to whom none other gave, claim him your own, who's everywhere disclaimed. Love all with love that none have felt, and brave the
Bye, everybody.
Hi, Mookie. Nice to see you. Thank you all for coming. And thank you, Stace, and good to see you, Deb.
Thank you. It was awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a beautiful
Have a great
evening.
week.
Good
was
to
a
see you,
lovely weekend.
Showers.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so
Aloha.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Stacy, weird. Papa, bye.